Hello and welcome to IndianExpress.com. The United States of America elected its 45th president, Republican Donald J. Trump, who defeated the Democrat Hillary Clinton. While many are calling it unexpected, especially after many media organizations like the NYT predicted that Hillary Clinton would be winning with approximately 85 to 90%. To discuss this further in the light of how media has covered this entire election and introspecting the US media, I'm joined by my colleagues Rahul and Srijana to discuss this development. Rahul, to you further. Everyone has been saying that this election has been pretty unpredictable, especially after the winning of Donald Trump. We've had a discussion on this as well, and you have also said that media has been in denial about this entire thing.
I would think so, yeah, because if you keep your ear to the ground instead of looking at the pollsters, I think it was not as much of a surprise as they would like you to believe. Okay. The turnout at his rallies was immense. If you look at the fear-mongering that he did in terms of terror, in terms of joblessness, I think he managed to get a fair share of people on his side. And I think the media sort of only tried to highlight the bad in him, which I agree is plenty. But in this case, I think the result also calls for an introspection on how the American media endorses candidates. Okay. Because a majority of mainstream media houses, NYT, Atlantic, these guys endorsed Hillary, and I think they made a big deal about it. This has been the trend throughout, but even places like Atlantic, this is the third time they've ever endorsed a candidate. So, so this calls for a few questions on: can a media house that endorses a candidate remain neutral afterwards? Yeah. I personally do not think so, because I think once you've picked a side, you cannot really be neutral in your coverage and your reportage. And secondly, the bigger question is, do people like being told who they should pick? I don't think so, because we live in a world where I think people are more comfortable making their choices. So that's probably something they need to introspect on.
But Srijana, the fact that we've seen the entire campaigning of Hillary Clinton, do you think when Americans voted today, were they considering the fact that America is still not ready for a woman leader, or was they considering the fact that she's a pretty unpopular leader with a lot of scams and a lot of allegations behind her?
I think it's yes to both, really. In my opinion, large parts of America are certainly not ready for a woman leader. That certainly seems to be, one of the reasons why Donald Trump had so much headwind. But on the other hand, we also have to look at who the woman leader in question is. So there's been a lot of discussion of whether Elizabeth Warren or even Michelle Obama would have been more popular, more strong candidates than Hillary Clinton, who's not in herself even seen as a feminist icon. Okay. It's only been in the last few months that she herself has adopted the mantle of a feminist icon. But in fact, all the while through her political career, she's basically been associated with male power. And so while she struggled as a woman in the public sphere, I remember at the time when she was First Lady, she was often criticized for saying that she would rather have a career than stay home and bake cookies. So, she has been bitterly criticized and attacked all the way for being a successful woman. But on the other hand, she's never consciously adopted feminist, symbols or feminist messages. It's only been in the last few months that we've seen a lot of that discussion from her. So whether Hillary Clinton even actually represented a feminist moment is debatable. Okay. Secondly, Hillary herself, as you said, came with a lot of baggage. She wasn't an untainted candidate. Absolutely. She won someone with the kind of easy breezy naturalness of Michelle Obama. So perhaps it was also just Hillary's loss rather than the loss of all womankind. But there is no denying that misogyny too has prevailed in this election.
Right, but looking at today's outcome, what do you think Americans really voted for today?
I think they voted at different levels. Firstly, I think they've certainly voted, it's a post-Barack Obama backlash. There's no two ways about that. This is a negation of everything Barack Obama has stood for as president. So it's, a kind of America closing in on itself and on certain values that certain sections of America consider appropriate for the country. So whether it's a kind of attitude about race, whether it's a kind of attitude about immigration, whether it's a kind of attitude about women, these are in complete contrast to Barack Obama and his presidency. So I think it's definitely a post-Barack moment. Secondly, I think, Donald Trump has, of course, played on many fears and all of that, but he's also played on a very interesting factor. He's played on how he's played the system. So this system is what many Americans blame for their current miseries, whether it's to do with jobs or medical insurance, etc. Now, Donald Trump took the system and threw it up in the air by not paying his taxes, by kind of laughing at every protocol and every norm that the system in America prescribes. And that, for some reason, has given his voters a sense of power, because they think that if their man is smart enough to actually diddle the system for himself, imagine what he could do for them. If anyone can fix a system, it's the man who knows how to play it, right? Because he knows where it's broken. So I think it's also that, a kind of very perverse but powerful sense of hope in someone who has played around with a broken system.
But Rahul, but do you also agree to the fact that this is absolutely a post-Barack Obama backlash?
It is, and also I think we have to sort of reconcile with the fact that we are living now in a world where fear is a very important motivator. In terms of, so he talked about building a wall to keep people out, and this is the sort of rhetoric that would otherwise not sell, but we live in a world where we probably are afraid of the other. So in this case, that was the Mexicans, the blacks, the Muslims, and to an extent even women.
Yeah.
So he knew who his voter base was, which is the white American male voter, and he rallied them, and he did not really care about the minorities to an extent, and this seems to have worked in his favor. So it also remains to be seen whether this has a cascading effect across the globe, because whether the fringe becomes the mainstream, whether the right sort of gains prominence, but I think we have to reconcile with the fact that fear has become a very important currency when it comes to polls.
Clearly, fear is, of course, a very important currency, as you rightly pointed out, when it comes to something like an election, and especially with the American elections. Thank you so much, Rahul, and for giving us your inputs on what happened today, especially after Donald Trump became the 45th President of the United States of America. For more news and updates, log on to IndianExpress.com.